different tax rates for different types of income. Most people are probably pretty familiar with how income tax rates work. Capital gains tax has obviously been in the news quite a lot recently as it's changed. What about savings rates? How do they work?
So I suppose as a general rule of thumb, like for example, if you were receiving bank interest, that is going to be taxed at your normal 20%, 40%, 45% tax rate. But there are a few savings allowances that you can take into consideration. If your first amount of taxable income is savings income, then there's something called a starting rate, and the starting rate is effectively taxed at 0%. So that's for the first £5,000 above your personal allowance.
So example there, little old granny, she
state pension.
Yeah, and then has interest income on some cash, then she'd be fine for the first £5,000.
Yeah. And then assuming that, I suppose even nowadays, if you're a minimum rate taxpayer and you're employed full time, you're not going to be eligible for that starting rate. So there's also a personal savings allowance, which I suppose is, again, HMRC kind of saying, actually, if you're getting a piddly amount, then we don't necessarily want to tax you on that. But again, from HMRC's perspective, they're leaning towards those who have less income. So if you are a basic rate taxpayer, you get £1,000 worth, or you can get £1,000 worth of interest
tax free.
Yeah, and that is above. So if you're somebody who gets that kind of starting rate, that £1,000 is above the starting rate. So you'd actually get £6,000 above your personal allowance if needs be. But yeah, so you get your for a basic rate taxpayer, you'd get £1,000. For a higher rate taxpayer, you can have £500 worth of interest before you start needing to pay tax. And for an additional rate taxpayer, tough luck, you've got to pay tax immediately on that. So in terms of reporting it, from HMRC's perspective, they only want you to need to report a tax return or report it via a tax return if your savings income are in excess of or is in excess of £10,000.
So how else would you report it then?
I'm guessing you have to contact them separately and tell, to an extent, if it's, for example, if it's a UK bank account, obviously UK banks will report to HMRC directly, so they'll have an idea as to how much income you are getting. But yeah, I think
it feels like another one, doesn't it, where they're desperately trying to get people out of the tax return system whilst not having another viable solution for people to easily report things.
Well, exactly, because what you're supposed to do, kind of give them a call. I think maybe you can do it online nowadays, where you can tell them that you'd like adjustments making. But again, that's very much as an individual. And when you have sort of the older generation who maybe aren't so IT savvy, certainly as agents, we can't make that update without picking up the phone to HMRC or contacting an agent line.
Yeah.